As we all know, with His Majesty the King continuing his treatment for cancer during 2025, of which, according to his eldest son, His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales, Prince William, he's fighting it hard. Well, it makes perfect sense as to why he decided to abstain from this particular, apparently, although he wanted to go, moving engagement, as one can imagine. Sadly, it was the funeral of the late President of the United States, Jimmy Carter. Now, for many people who, remember, I'm sure so many people do, but for me, I think he was the very first president I remember seeing on television because he had that big beaming smile. But I think as children, we were told in school all about the Peanut Association. And of course, that fascinates children, doesn't it? You're like, what, a president, peanuts, all that sort of stuff. And then, it becomes sort of infamous, doesn't it? Now, as we know, representing His Majesty the King was none other than the Duke of Edinburgh, forever to me, of course, known as Prince Edward. And I think this was an excellent choice, actually. But here, there's a bit of background to that because, as many people also know, I was lucky enough to produce one of the things that the former president did over here in the United Kingdom. And what was fascinating about it, as I said, was he was just a wonderful man, very down to earth, and many people suggested a lot more work outside of his stint as a president. Hard to think, isn't it? Because, of course, people assume once you step away from one of the biggest jobs in the world, well, that's it. But clearly not for Mr. Carter. As I say, he was very down to earth, lovely, warm, charismatic guy, and you could understand why he'd reached such a pinnacle of success. But, of course, his biggest claim to fame over here in the United Kingdom was when he misguidedly gave the Queen Mother a kiss on the lips at the very first meeting. Now, this sent sort of shockwaves, as one can imagine, around the world at the time, breaking royal protocol, a little akin, of course, to Michelle Obama, who dared to put her hand on the back of Her Majesty the Queen. She said, oh, don't worry about it, it's fine, But of course, this is what royal protocol's about. Apparently, according to sources, the Queen Mother delighted in telling people about how she was kind of taken aback by this forward embrace, shall we say. But what was really nice was she told everybody. And according to Prince Edward, the Duke of Edinburgh, not only did she tell everybody, but she told them about how, literally it was a long time since a very debonair man had kissed her on the lips. And she giggled like a cottage schoolgirl, apparently. Told the servants, told any visiting dignitaries, whatever. I think actually this made the Queen Mother's year that year. But nonetheless, it goes down in royal history. The reason, as I say, that Prince Edward, or the Duke of Edinburgh as he should formally be known now, of course, literally was representing His Majesty the King, was on his behalf and at the request of both the King and the Queen, Camilla. And people can say, oh, well, politics, does it... we don't get into politics, as you know. But what I find fascinating is there are people in history. And sometimes you look at these people and you think, I can't quite believe I'm in the room with you, as I did with President Carter. And obviously his legacy will live on because he goes down in the history books. And as many people know, it's a little bit like royalty over here. Their story lives on because people rediscover them. And I think people will rediscover the story of Jimmy Carter, or James Carter, depending on how you like to address him. Either way, he was a nice guy and a very sad loss to the world. Thank you to the Duke of Edinburgh for representing His Majesty the King and Queen and the rest of us and the Commonwealth and the world so diligently. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.